Okay, let me explain something to you, bozos, because I have had it officially with every last one of these Facebook moms and Russian bots, and least of all, you high school dropout, sun damage ridden men with your utterly underwhelming gym selfie profile pictures trying to get into my comments and tell me about the Constitution and the law. Mary, I don't think you know who you're arguing with. I don't think we want to get into what your GPA in high school was, assuming you finished, okay? And I'm going to refer you very cordially to the Constitution of the United States of America, which, by the way, if you type that shit into Google, is free, bitch. All right? And I'm going to refer you to Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution, which reads very clearly as follows. Congress shall have the power to declare war, grant letters of marque and reprisal, and make rules concerning captures on land and water. Congress has the sole authority to declare war under our constitutional system of government. And these bozos think that they're cute and smart and try and get in my comments and say, well, what about Obama went to Libya? And what about Bill Clinton in Kosovo? And what about all these examples of the president using military force without a formal declaration of war? What you people fail to realize, but could easily realize if you exercised your free will and your ability to go onto google.com and look up the shit about which you speak with such brazenness and misplaced confidence, you would know that every single one of the examples you're citing are examples in which Congress gave express statutory grants of authority to the president to use military force in a very specific and narrowly defined operational capacity. That did not happen here. And in fact, the White House and its surrogates went to Capitol Hill and told members of Congress, we will not put boots on the ground unless we notify Congress or we get some kind of war powers resolution or we get some kind of congressional approval to do so. We will at least notify you. The White House Chief of Staff said on the record less than 2 weeks ago to Vanity Fair that if they wanted to put boots on the ground in Venezuela, they would need to seek congressional approval to do so. Not necessarily through a declaration of war, a formal declaration of war, but through an authorization of the use of military force through a specific and defined federal statute. You people do not know what you are talking about. Now, of course, if there are missiles coming at the United States of America from a different country, almost every single legal scholar worth their salt agrees that the president has inherent Article 2 authority to use military force to neutralize that threat or to respond to that threat in some way without seeking congressional authorization to do so, in large part because there isn't time to seek congressional authorization. That kind of situation has never happened. The president has never tried to invoke that kind of authority, and it certainly cannot be said that the president is invoking that kind of authority here, because if Nicolas Maduro pose some kind of imminent, articulable, and specific threat to the integrity of the United States homeland, right? If he posed this kind of imminent threat to American national security, why has the Trump administration waited and sat on its hands for almost an entire year since taking office and not taken him out? If he was such a threat, why didn't they take him out earlier? The only remotely comparable precedent to what happened yesterday in Venezuela is the 1989 invasion of Panama by the United States, in which George H.W. Bush sent American armed forces into Panama to apprehend Manuel Noriega, the leader of that nation, and extradite him to stand trial on federal drug charges in the United States. Now, President George H.W. Bush did this without express congressional authorization. Congress never gave its blessing for the military to be used in this way. And that is the subject of great legal controversy. To this day, legal scholars do not agree as to whether or not that was a legal or constitutional use of military force. So given that controversy, it cannot be used somehow as a kind of example or a precedent to justify what happened yesterday in Venezuela, which was clearly unconstitutional and illegal, okay? But even if you grant, for the sake of argument, the extraordinary proposition that what happened in 1989 in Panama was totally legal, right, and totally within the president's Article 2 authority, the precedent set there does not even remotely extend to what happened yesterday in Venezuela. In 1989 in Panama, the National Assembly in Panama declared war on the United States of America. No such thing happened in Venezuela, okay? Also, a U.S. Marine was shot and killed in the line of duty. And that was part of the justification that the Bush administration raised for its invocation of inherent Article 2 powers. But even if you set all of that aside, I just still don't understand what these people are trying to say. The fact that Nicolas Maduro is a bad man, which again, no one disputes is the case, does not furnish the president with the ability to override the supreme law of the land, the Constitution of the United States. It does not give him the authority to use military force without congressional authorization. And like, I think we all agree that Nicolas Maduro is a bad guy. If that's the case, the president should have no problem going to Congress and seeking the authorization for the use of military force from Congress, as is the system that the framers set up in the Constitution and the laws of the United States, as is the undisturbed precedent, going back to the entirety of this nation's history, okay? And you want to say, well, Nicolas Maduro's bad. Okay, take it to Congress. This is the system our framers set up. Why is there a provision in the Constitution that requires the president to seek congressional authorization before using military force? Because we paid for those military facilities with our taxpayer dollars, and they don't just get to be used for any reason whatsoever, because it's an exercise of lethal power, okay? And to have that in the hands of one man is extremely dangerous without some checks and balances, okay? And because that's the system that our framers set up. And if you don't like it, that's too damn fucking bad, okay? And you can argue with me all day whether you think it's a good or a bad idea for the president to have to go to Congress to use military force. But you can't argue that that is the reality. It is the reality. And the president did not seek congressional authorization. He did not even notify Congress before doing this. That is illegal. And that's just a fact. And I'm sorry if that hurts your sensitive conservative feelings, but it is just a fact. And you can argue with me all day about whether or not you think that's a good idea, but it's the law, and the law is the law. And I'm sorry. Like, I'm genuinely sorry that your conservative feelings have been hurt, but I'm telling you the truth, and facts don't care about your feelings, which is a quote that I read somewhere, and I can't quite remember where. Anyway, hopefully this was informative for all of you. Class dismissed.